Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be appearing at the state capture inquiry tomorrow and on Thursday. He'll complete his evidence in his capacity as current president and former deputy president of the ANC. Ramaphosa expected to face quite a number of questions. Let's take you live to our senior reporter, that's Ziyanda Ngcobo. She's going to be watching that story for us tomorrow. Ziyanda, it was not an easy time at all the last time that the president appeared, mostly in his capacity on behalf of the ANC, as president of the ANC, and really having to explain how the party's policy translates itself in government and whether policies such as cadre deployment have been for the better of this country, or if they've actually set us back and have contributed to the levels of patronage and the networks of patronage that have resulted in what we now describe as state capture.
Absolutely, and you'll recall that President Ramaphosa at the time, of course appearing as ANC president, defended, the principle of cadre deployment. In fact, he also, as deputy president, would have chaired the committee which would deploy members of the ANC to government. And those are some of the issues that the president, now appearing as state president, will also slightly touch on, because there were some issues, Kathy, that the president didn't quite complete discussing. And you'll know that the ANC and the caucus and parliament in particular has come under fire in their failure to actually exercise oversight and to actually hold the executive accountable. Now, it's very interesting that, this point came up then, and it's likely to come up tomorrow, given the fact that firstly, Ramaphosa will be appearing as deputy president. He would have been the leader of government business. He would have been the chair of the ESCOM war room, but also he would have been in charge of managing then the ministers in parliament. And a key to this was the former National Assembly Speaker, Thandi Modise. When she appeared here at the State Capture Commission, she basically admitted that they didn't do a particularly great job at making sure that their members were held accountable. And now today, we know that the ANC caucus has nominated Newzroom Afrika, the former defense minister, to be the Speaker of Parliament. Now, I'm raising this, Kathy, because, firstly, she's definitely going to be getting a salary raise, but she's also going to be overseeing the report into the recent civil unrest. And it is that particular Newzroom Afrika who had actually contradicted the president in the characterization of this unrest, Kathy. So these are some of the things that the president needs to explain to the commission as to how we got to this point. But I can tell you that one political analyst, Stephen Friedman, believes that maybe we are, as the media and other pundits, exaggerating the power that Mapisa Ngakula will now have if she becomes Speaker of the National Assembly. Let's take a listen.
In effect, the Speaker has as much power as the governing party without her to have. And the idea is, as I heard this morning, that she can now tell the president what to do, is frankly ridiculous. Some speakers can encourage more active oversight, others less so, and whether they do or not depends on the politics of the time.
Ziyanda, just taking a look at expectations again in terms of the kind of questions that President Cyril Ramaphosa will have to answer. You mentioned something important earlier, and that was around his role as the leader of government business. It is during this period that SOEs really experience the worst in terms of the looting, because there's really no other way of describing it, of billions of rand. This would have happened under his watch. Are we going to see a case where the president is held a lot more directly accountable versus what we saw the last time, where he's speaking on the part of the party, and so you hear a lot of this collective responsibility that we've come to hear about from the ANC?
Absolutely, and so you know what we're expecting is that the president will complete his representations as ANC president. But of course, we know these also fall into the greater politics as to how he conducted his work as deputy president. For an example, with the ESCOM war room that was set up by former President Jacob Zuma in 2015, where Ramaphosa was tasked with, in essence, ending load shedding. Now, this is something that when you listen to experts such as Ted Blom will tell you that the former deputy president left an invisible footprint, and what he was saying there was that in essence there was no report once the war room work was done, but also given the context of last year being the worst year of load shedding in the country, what work was actually done. You take a look at SOEs such as SAA, for an example, where boards were being manipulated to appoint certain people, and where was former deputy president Cyril Ramaphosa when all of this was happening? I mean, the most famous and classic example is that of the Guptas landing at the Vaterkloof Air Force Base. I mean, if as deputy president you're the leader of government business but also managing the ministers, what questions were you asking the ministers, you know, in parliament? You know, sometimes ministers would not answer specific questions that would be posed to them, Kathy. So these are some of the things that President Cyril Ramaphosa will have to respond to. There's also, you'll recall, Kathy, when Gwede Mantashe, who was the former Secretary General of the ANC, when he appeared before the commission, he told Justice Raymond Zondo that at least 2 ministers had written to him speaking about the influence of the Gupta family that was now becoming an increasing feature in the appointment of ministers, etc. And I'm expecting that President Ramaphosa will be asked, well, were you aware of these 2 reports? What did you do? And you know, we know that part of the argument that is made by Ramaphosa supporters is that, well, you know, the president, who was deputy president at the time, had his hands tied. And if you recall, when Nhlanhla Nene was removed from his post, that was one of the instances when he was able to influence from within certain decisions to try then and stop what we now, you know, call a state capture dead in its tracks before then the public purse would be handed over to the Gupta family.
Newzroom Africa's senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo will be covering those proceedings for us. You can also expect a live coverage of that testimonial or that evidence by the president at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry tomorrow.